Hi, I'm Jacy.
My name is Juan. Welcome to The Couch, a podcast where real therapists talk about real things.
Please remember that while we are therapists, we are not your therapists, and this podcast is intended for educational purposes only.
So the topic for today is motivation.
Yes, motivation, the great driver of all that we do.
You know, it's a big topic, right? Like motivation. I think a lot of people read self-help books, maybe like Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or The Power of Habits, Compound Habits. I think motivation for the majority of people is a topic that excites them in some sort of fashion or another.
Yeah, I can agree with that, definitely. Motivation, as we're talking about it today, is defined as the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Otherwise, it is why you do what you do. That's how we're using the word motivation today.
That's a good definition there. And there's, when you're looking at maybe from a very foundational level, you're out there, you're living life and you're thinking, do I feel motivated? Or maybe you don't feel motivated and you're trying to figure out how to fuel this fire or fuel this engine. And I find that there's different areas of our life that we have maybe a little more motivation for, which could be like that stimulation of what stimulates me to do this act. So is it that you're motivated to read books? You're motivated to go to work, to put on something funny on Netflix? And I think that just differs for different people.
It does differ for different people, and understanding what your motivation is, why your motivation is, how your motivation is pretty essential to figuring out exactly what it is that's going to drive you and how to get yourself to do things, especially when it's something you don't really want to do. What is your motivation for washing clothes? Well, because I have to go to work. So
yeah.
to make sure that I've got clean clothes. What is your motivation for working out? Because I want to be strong enough to play with my kids, or I like the way my body looks when I move my body in a certain way.
Yeah. And with motivation, I find with some of the patients I've worked with in the past, there's just certain periods of life, like maybe you were 12 years old and you were like, I remember when I was 12, I was really motivated with being in drama club or being on the baseball field. And now you're 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever number's on there, and you're not feeling that same motivation. So that can cause like this sense of stuck or something's wrong with me. Have you seen that in your work, Jacy?
Oh, absolutely. I have. I actually see it a lot with former student athletes. So people who were maybe competitive when they were in high school and college. And it's like, I used to get up and train for hours a day. And I don't know why I can't make myself do it now. And that's like a common misconception that motivation is you forcing yourself to do something. And I think that's more along the lines of discipline. Motivation has to be influenced by a number of things, but I find that people are typically motivated by things they enjoy.
You're absolutely right. As far as like the discipline, I got to get up and I got to brush my teeth. I may not want to, have no desire to, but this has to get done for X, Y, and Z reason. So for motivation, which this is like the trick book, if you will, for motivation, if you dig deep and figure out like values or purpose, interests, needs, goals, those are like that extra fuel that helps to drive that motivation forward.
Absolutely so. So the real question is, where are people getting all this motivation from, Juan? Where are we supposed to find it in our day-to-day?
So here we have, and I appreciate you doing this, we have recognition, right? Rewards, development, goals, enjoyment. I think values can be in there. And I like to do the spider diagram for this one, where you have a big circle in the middle of the paper where you write down motivation or what motivates me. And then you just start drawing lines outside of that circle. And it could be, if it's goals, maybe you write down the goal to read 7 books, or enjoyment. It could be, I enjoy watching something funny. And as you
Mm-hmm.
fill up this diagram here, this image, you're going to have a lot of information in front of you that should start to give you the groundwork to push you forward, to motivate you, X, Y, or Z reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And make it clear that your motivations are going to shape not only the why you do things, but the how. So if you aren't really motivated to go to work for any reason other than I need to make money,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's the only reason you go to work, that's a valid explanation. That's a valid experience to have. And it's also going to change the way that you show up. Also,
Correct.
knowing what you're motivated by, incredibly important. I don't know if you've ever seen sort of like the dog training videos where they're like, oh, this breed of dog is very food motivated. So when you're training them, you have to make sure that you give them treats because that's the only way that they'll learn. And
But
humans, unfortunately, are very similar. So, I don't necessarily cook just because I enjoy cooking. I also understand I need to feed my body. So that's why I cook. And knowing what drives you is going to give you a better handle on sort of solidifying where your motivation comes from so that you stop beating yourself up when you're feeling unmotivated to do things.
And it sounds like you're saying too, it's a exploratory process, right? It's not a linear process. It's not a dead end that this is what it is. You're always growing and facilitating it and trying to understand how it evolves or shifts.
Mm-hmm.
With motivation, we've got intrinsic and extrinsic motivators.
Mm-hmm.
Those, I find that at times there's people that go, yes, I know exactly what that means. Other times, not so much, which is okay. With your external, your extrinsic motivators, I think about these as more like the outside, like what's further away from you,
Mm-hmm.
versus your internal. You've got those come from within. So that could be on an external level. I'm motivated to, as an example, have a really cool car with butterfly doors because I want to impress my friends. So now this is motivating me to go into a certain job and make a certain amount of money to be able to buy this for that reason. Internal, you're going the other way. You're going a little more inside. So maybe I'm motivated to wake up early on a Saturday and volunteer at a shelter and give my time there because that's a core value within. And then that helps me feel energized. It connects to my purpose and enjoyment and so forth. How has your work been around that with internal, external?
The way that I actually build like that in session has been really interesting recently because I find that a lot of people are conditioned to value external motivation more than intrinsic motivation. So people will say, I have to work hard at my job because I want to be a 6-figure earner. I want the cool car with the butterfly doors. I want to be rewarded, praised. I want to show people what I'm doing and get recognition in return. And then when you ask people, okay, but what's on the inside that's driving it? They're like, I don't know. I don't really know what it is. And so that values piece is so important. What happens when you look at a list of values? How do you reflect these values in your day-to-day life? Okay. Well, autonomy is important to me. So the reason that I get up every day and open my own small business is because I want to be autonomous. I don't want to work for anybody else. I just want to work for me. So all of a sudden, the value becomes motivation.
Yeah. And with it, if you're listening in and maybe you're thinking, well, I guess external is bad. No, not necessarily. I think it's completely okay to have a mixture of both. If you're able to maybe jot them down and reflect on where do they come from? How do they serve you? Then you're going to have a better understanding whether you can put a label on, is this one healthy? Is it productive? Is it constructive to my life? Or does it steer too much into that negative category?
Absolutely. And the only difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are where they come from. Having more of one than the other might lead you to ask some different questions of yourself. But like Juan was saying, it doesn't mean anything other than you just have these two experiences. The real question is, what happens when you've got low motivation? Like you're just really not feeling it at all, not feeling anything whatsoever.
Mhm.
When your clients are usually feeling like really low in their motivation, what's usually going on for them?
That's such a real, like a real raw experience that happens, and the majority of us, we don't like for it to happen. I find that first, as you and I are talking about motivation, it's accepting and understanding and being aware of what it is, right? So at the end of the day, it's literally somebody behind you trying to just nudge you a little bit. It's a good book, I think, called Nudge. Have you read that one?
Mm-mm.
And I think there's the title of it, Nudge. And it's these moments in life where you're nudged in the right direction, if you will. Now,
Mhm.
knowing that motivation is someone behind you just nudging you, like kind of just giving you a slight soft push in a certain direction. I find that's like a gentle visualization, and that person behind you is you. Now you're pushing you,
Mhm.
which sounds kind of wild, and you're pushing you based off of certain values and rewards and development and goals and all this great stuff. And
Mhm.
there are moments in life where things are just going in the wrong direction, or you just may have had a really exhausting day. So then you wake up and you are exhausted, you're tired, you're overwhelmed.
Mhm.
So you feel, and I think it's a very real feeling. I know I felt it. Like you feel with this sense of low motivation.
Mhm.
And for me, I describe it as I feel tired, I feel disconnected, um, I feel like I don't want to do anything today. It's not necessarily a sense of I'm depressed, I want to end it all, but I feel a sense of depression with like a numbness, almost like an eraser being pushed against your skin. You feel like that pressure is not painful, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And then it creates a barrier. It makes the goal or the fun thing that you want to do. Now there's this big gap, and you're trying to figure out how to build a bridge, but you're too tired to build it.
Yeah, that emphasis on exhaustion is really important because we unfortunately live in a society that values the go, 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 the do, do, do. And
Mm-hmm.
we burn ourselves out on our own expectations so that when it comes to doing the stuff we really want to do, or even the stuff we really need to do, we don't have the energy to do it. And I think some people mistake that the low motivation for like laziness,
Yeah.
and that's not at all what it is. I can't remember who described it this way, but I heard somewhere someone saying if you were being lazy, you would be enjoying the time that you spent not doing the thing you were supposed to do, as opposed to like beating yourself up about it or kind of sitting there like, I should do this, I should do that, I should be going, I should be going, I should be going. And there are lots of reasons that somebody might be experiencing that low motivation. Like you were saying, Juan, you could be in a bit of a slump. You could be burnt out. You could be experiencing a depressive episode. It could
Mm-hmm.
be something medical. So if you're chronically ill and you've got low motivation, yeah, your body probably needs a little bit of rest. And sometimes it's environmental, where the
Yeah.
place in which you are puts you in a state of low motivation. Oh, I don't really like my classes this semester, so I'm not motivated to do well in them. I don't really enjoy the car that I drive, so I'm not motivated to take care of it.
Yeah. Like, right now, you and I are recording this December 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
So holidays are in the midst here, and people may be going around spending time with certain peers, relatives, and you may be thinking, I'm not looking forward to doing that. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
motivated to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And here's the trick to it. If you all of a sudden change the setting and you got to pick exactly who's going to be there and what you're going to do, would that create like this shift where now you feel motivated? And if the answer is yes, that tells you the power and the influence and the entire structure behind motivation and how it's connected to certain variables such as environment, setting, those around us, and so forth. JC, what do you see as far as people listening and they're looking at what does the research say? What are the things that we can do to improve our motivation?
I am so glad you asked, because when you feel like you have no motivation, it can be kind of hard to feel like you can rebuild it. But I have good news. You absolutely can rebuild it. One of the first things you can do is practice a little bit of self-compassion. So that means you're going to be kind to yourself. You're going to be understanding that, maybe right now I don't have the energy to do X, Y, and Z, but that's okay. That's fine. Let me try to keep moving anyway. You can also try to set your goals a little more intentionally. We've talked about SMART goals on the podcast before. For those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive. Mm-hmm. So instead of having this lofty goal of, I want to run a 5K, maybe we reduce that down to something a little more specific. Okay. What 5K do you want to run? When is it going to happen? How much do you have to train before you do that? Et cetera, so forth. That can, give you more motivation because you've taken a big goal, broken it down into smaller pieces.
Yeah.
You can reward yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
No, you're good. Continue. Reward yourself.
Yes, you can reward yourself for your small victories, but there's a caveat here. You actually have to do the work in order to get the reward, which sucks, right? Because it's like, I'm going to buy myself this really nice bracelet. Okay, but did you do the thing you said you were going to do for that nice bracelet? But when you buy yourself that nice bracelet, it's an example of you celebrating your results, big and small, because a win is a win. Yeah. You gotta celebrate your small victories.
That's always I find like a challenge there. The small victories. Mm-hmm. I think we get so sucked into the big ones. Like I'm like just waiting for that last step, and I'm like, yes. So what about the process?
Yeah, I'm guilty of being a big victory person. It's like very much so. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this thing, and it's like, well, yeah, but I did a bunch of other stuff to get here too. That stuff was important as well. Like, it's all important. Mm-hmm. And the last one is actually the one, Juan, that you just mentioned, which is the change of environment. If you got to handcraft the environment that you're in, your motivation would probably go higher. What with the holiday season? Because sometimes we're surrounded by people that don't support our efforts. Sometimes we're surrounded by groups that are maybe negative or groups that don't fuel us when it comes to our motivation. Mm-hmm. So maybe a friend who's really negative about everything that they're doing, so it sucks the energy out of you. Maybe you work in a place where morale is pretty low, or an industry where it can be really hard some days to keep being motivated to do what you do.
Yeah. That again, like raw acceptance or radical acceptance, that reality of take a step back, look at the life that you have in front of you. How are you living it? Mm-hmm. And where can you find these opportunities to build motivation? And they're in there somewhere. At times it just requires like a really strong level of effort and mindfulness. I find with motivation, as far as I think one of the common areas is, well, I'm so low on motivation. How do I even get started? Because all of this seems overwhelming. Like I am way 100 steps back. And you're wanting me to do this and to do that, and this whole SMART goal is too much, and I completely understand that. So we just throw all that to the side and look at one tiny step, and in that little tiny step, it'll just give you enough of that nudge to then take the next one, and before you know it, you're going to have rhythm, and that's where that sequence starts to take place to develop that sense of motivation as far as like making it action oriented.
Yes, absolutely. Building a little bit of momentum to go with your motivation so that you can push yourself forward.
For you, Jacy, any personal examples or stories here on how you stay motivated?
It depends on what I'm doing, but a lot of my motivation is just driven from what I'm excited about. Like, it's almost always what I'm excited about. So I play a bunch of musical instruments, and I don't always like to practice. But if there's a song that I've heard that I'm excited about, I might say, okay, well, I really want to be able to play this piece. I really want to be able to do this thing musically. So I have to practice for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the motivation is to like accomplish the goal.
Yeah.
And once I do it, it feels so cool and I'm super happy about it. But that's just like a small example.
Yeah. No, I like that example. So things that excite you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way that you started it. I think for me, I picked up that there could have been many answers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's like an interesting point of motivation. So the question of how do you stay motivated? If you really sit on it long enough, you'll find that there's not just one answer. It depends on so many aspects and variables of your life. Mine, I agree with that. I get really motivated when there's things I'm excited about.
Mm-hmm.
I also get motivated. I don't want to copy yours, so I'll give a different example here. I get motivated by service-related projects. So if there's like an opportunity of showing up, and even if it's picking up trash on the side of the road, there's something about it that has like a deep value, intrinsic purpose for me, where I'm out there and I'm picking up the trash and I'm thinking in my mind of, this is great. People are going to see a clean road, and maybe people see this, and then it's going to create a ripple effect, and they're going to go, I'm going to pick up a little bit more, and then now we're going to have a cleaner world, and I'm cleaning up this park, and now the kids are going to play, and they're going to enjoy that at a higher level, and then all of that is just like fueling my motivation, and before you know it, you're looking at me and you're like, man, this guy is way too happy to be out here picking up trash in the cold. What's wrong with him? So that's what's happening in my mind, that whole process.
No, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I think those are two great examples of how two people can have vastly different sort of scripts for their motivation. And it doesn't invalidate either of us. It just goes to show how personal motivation is and how figuring out what drives you is going to be an individual journey. And we're not comparable in that way, because I don't know if I would be super happy to be picking up trash in the cold, because I don't like the cold, but I can absolutely see where you come from. Like, like the road is clean. The kids are going to enjoy this park. I'm doing my part to contribute to my community. And that's a very powerful driver for motivation.
Yeah. What's your personal growth challenge for today for the listeners?
My personal growth challenge for anyone who's listening is to write out 5 things that motivate you and one goal that you've accomplished this year that comes out of that motivation.
That's a good personal growth challenge there. I'm going to take a mindful approach and encourage you to start with that circle that we talked about early. Write down in there my motivation, and then draw out some lines, and then just start putting down anything and everything that impacts motivation, whether it's good or bad. And when you get done with that, you're going to have a lot of stuff in that paper. The ones that bring your motivation up, put a plus to it. The ones that tend to bring it down, put a little negative sign to it. And then all you're going to do is just be aware of it. Keep living life. And when you are in the moments that you have a negative, it's going to be an aha moment. And what happens is, just by having this like cognitive factor, you're likely not to be as impacted by it. It won't be as rigid, if you will. And then from there, you can choose those next steps.
Absolutely. Love that. This was a great conversation, Juan.
This was a very chilled, relaxed conversation on a very popular topic. I think we just scratched the surface too.
Yeah, you could definitely get deeper into this. And you know what? Maybe one day we will. But for today, that's all we have for you guys.
All right. We'll see you in the next episode.
See ya.